Y'all, my magnolia tree is blooming. You can't really see it from below, but you can see it from outside my living room window. That thing was almost dead whenever we got our home 7 years ago. And it's looking quite alive. It's never had as many blooms on it as it does right now. Several of you commented in surprise after our big reveal video where we planted a willow tree at our new property. You said you were surprised I didn't plant a magnolia. I actually do plan on planting a magnolia there, but I felt like the willow tree next to the water would stand a better chance of surviving because I knew that we weren't gonna be back there for a handful of weeks. As it turned out, our new neighbor actually offered to water our willow tree for us and called us the other day and told us that it's grown about 8 inches. His granddaughter's been running over there and watering it, and it's doing really well. And I'll get the magnolia tree in once we're there to actually take care of it. Look at my zinnias, they're looking really good in the zinnia bed now. There's obviously a lot of weeds going on out here, but instead of getting consumed with weeding, I'm actually about to start putting some more seeds in. We have a lovely spring forecast of rain for the next several days. I think it says right now something like every day this week there's at least a 50% chance of thunderstorms, and tomorrow's like a 90% chance. So I came down here to, one, empty out my rain gauges because I'm really curious to see what our total amount of rainfall is this week, and two, I have a pocket full of seeds, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw some of these in the blank spaces in the garden so that they will get good and watered in with the rain. Look at all of these volunteer ground cherries. There are so many out in this garden. I'm glad too, because while the ones I planted are recovering from sun scald, I don't have to be that worried about it because we have plenty out here. I'm not planning on doing anything by way of weeding or maintenance like that right now, because with so much rain coming, it wouldn't matter. I could have spent all day out here today weeding this garden, and after 4 or 5 days of spring rain, when it's warm outside, it would need to be completely weeded again after that. Even with the mulch down, the mulch will sprout. The thing with using straw mulch is that it sprouts at first, and then once you pull out all of those weeds, you can lay it down another layer, and typically it kind of stops at some point. It at least stops doing it quite as bad. But I still prefer having a good few inches of straw mulch down versus none, because the grass that grows out of the soil, it's a lot deeper rooted weeds and it's harder to deal with. I just grabbed all of these seeds. I like sowing seeds right before it's going to rain for a couple of days. The exception to that is if I'm trying to sow something that has really tiny seeds like lettuce or carrots or some flowers. I will avoid sowing those right before a lot of rain. But bigger things like these squashes and melons, I grabbed some more okra seeds, some nasturtiums, and I did bring out some basil seeds, but I'm going to be like heavily broadcasting them. I'm going to sow kind of thickly with these. So if some of them wash away, we'll have at least some of them that grow. I just grabbed a few different things. I'm missing something. Oh, this is what I'm looking for. Salt and pepper cucumbers. This is one that you guys suggested because I so like the silver slicer. The salt and pepper cucumber is supposed to be like the pickling version of the silver slicer. Now, my experience with the silver slicer was that you could pick it smaller and it was great pickled, but I have not grown the salt and pepper, so I'm going to grow that this year. And I noticed an absence in my garden and went and thankfully had these seeds. I don't have any holy basil, and in the past it has volunteered and I've always had it, but I haven't seen any come up, and I don't know. So I'm gonna go ahead and sow some. I didn't even start any because it usually volunteers. So I'm gonna just thickly sow these seeds and hopefully get some holy basil in the garden. You can get holy basil seeds, or sometimes called sacred basil. Tulsi is the actual name of it. You can get them at a lot of different places, but there are different varieties of it, and some of them are more fragrant than others. I most enjoyed the variety that M.I. Gardner carries. The just holy Tulsi basil from M.I. Gardner is the one that's so fragrant that I so love having in the garden. I just want to bury my face in it. I came out here the other day and I was sowing seeds in empty spaces, and I walked back in and emptied my pockets out, and my pocket was just like slam full of empty seed packets and envelopes, and I was like, that is the mark of a good afternoon. All right, so before we get too into this, I keep hearing this little goat screaming over in the woods. We're gonna go see what's going on with him. No, no, no. No, no, you shoo-shoo. Like that. Mister or ma'am. I don't actually know how to tell the geese. I don't know if these are males or females. How do you tell? Hey, tiny goat. That's not a tiny goat. That's Ross Poldark. What are you hollering for? Huh? Are you stuck? Are you stuck? Oh, you are. Did you get your head stuck? Don't be a jerk, okay? Don't be a jerk. Be sweet. Come on. Hold on. Hold on, baby. Hold on. There you go. That is why most of my goats do not have horns. The other day on a vlog, I was talking about having that mom sense where you hear your kids hollering at each other, and you know the difference between like a actual hurt cry or a mad cry or just like a play fighting cry. So that sense works for goats too. I started planting those seeds and I stopped and I thought, something's actually wrong back there. Another thing that it's going to be time for after the rainy days is that I'm going to need to come out and start tying up my tomatoes. Some of them down on the other end are going to need some pruning, but I'll do all that after the rain. Rainwater has soluble nitrogen in it. It's very, very good for the garden. And the amount of growth between now and just a few days from now with all this rain coming in, it'll be just absolutely extraordinary for the plants and for the weeds. You guys helped me ID this as a black nightshade, which is a poisonous plant. I think it's supposed to be poisonous for animals too, so I'm not going to throw it over to the goats. Though I do think that this does grow in our woods, so I think they probably end up eating it. But I'm not going to give it to them on purpose. And here, I'm thinking instead of planting this side of the trellis, I might just move these. These are Malabar spinach. I think I might, oh, there's some already growing right here at the base of the trellis. I think I would rather let this grow. So this probably isn't the case if you're growing in the ground, especially if your soil is not super well draining. But if you're growing in raised beds and your raised beds drain well, right before a lot of rain is also a very great time to like transplant things. Like the way that I just ripped that plant up and moved it over. If it was gonna be really hot and dry, that could be detrimental. The fact that it's gonna be really rainy, it'll take root. So Maya has actually been out of town the last 2 days. He'll be home early in the morning on Monday. And so tonight, it was like the rain was coming, but I'm home by myself with my kids. So usually in a case like that, I would be inside with them or hanging out with them. But because we're gonna be having rain for the next few days, I had Jackson, my 15-year-old, do dinner tonight so that I could be out here planting and making this video. I just didn't want to miss the opportunity of putting all these seeds in. This is a prime time to take advantage of whenever you're gardening, especially this time of year. Just because seriously, like the stuff that I plant right now will be up and doing and growing by the end of the week, and everything else just be taking off. I grabbed a few kinds of squash. Some of the packages opened. These are in my pocket. No idea. Let's plant them anyway. I'm gardening a little more recklessly than I have in the past because it's my last season in this garden. So I want to make the most of it. You'll notice whenever I'm putting seeds in for things and I have the mulch already down, I just make a little space for it. And once those plants come up and they get a couple of inches tall, I'll just replace the mulch back around them. This afternoon, I went by my friend Becky's house. Her son just graduated high school. So he's 18 and he's real good friends with Jackson. And Becky and I were friends like when we were pregnant with our teenager. So our boys have known each other their entire lives. So we went by to take him a graduation card and see him. And I got to see her garden. I haven't seen her garden. She was sharing all the different things she was doing and was talking to another friend there, and she was talking about how she had read my new book and was growing a garden. And you know, I have to confess to you guys, like, you send me pictures and you tag me in things and you tell me that you read my book, and I see that it has 1,800 reviews on Amazon. Like, I see these things, like, I know that it's real. But I don't know why. It's still kind of like takes me aback a little bit, like when I go to a friend's house and see their garden and they tell me like the things that they learned and the things that they're applying, or you know, whenever I get to meet you guys in person. I don't know why, but there is admittedly just a tiny disconnect in my mind between the fact that I carry this camera around my garden and the fact that so many of you are applying these ideas and this information. I think it's better that way though. I think that I think it's easier to navigate all of this with it feeling slightly unreal. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that. Like, but it really is. It's slightly unreal, and that's okay. I'm just making these videos for my friends that like to see my garden, and there are just, you know, a few more of you than I might realize in the moment of filming them. All right, so I grabbed a few more zinnia seeds. I already have quite a few kinds started down here, but I figured I would bring down just a little bit more variety. I'm going to just mix these together. Here I've got the Thumbelina mix. How many zinnias is too many zinnias? Is there such a thing? I mean, I should probably grow some food this year. I'm just largely in denial of the fact that I'm moving. Whenever I'm planting this garden, I go between like being completely pumped about, okay, we're moving, we're upgrading, we're getting a bigger space, it's my dream property, we're gonna build our forever home, we're gonna build our forever farm where we apply all the things that we know and it's gonna be awesome. And then I also kind of rotate into this thinking of like, so efficient, she must make the most of it. It's about to not be yours anymore. I also have these sunflower seeds. These are really massive sunflower seeds. They're not marked, but they were in my seed box. And look at these things, they're huge. So I'm gonna throw some of those into the corners of the beds also. Yeah, here we go. Put these in my pocket. Oh, and here's some pole cowpeas. Thought this would be good. So over here I have some volunteer tomatoes, which are going to be a cherry tomato variety because they're right here next to where the cherry tomatoes grew last year, as well as these volunteer zinnias, which these are, I'm assuming, reseeded from those massive like 6-foot tall zinnias that grew here last year. And I've just left all of this here and it's kind of a mess, but I'm leaving it anyway. So on this side, I'm thinking I'll throw these cowpeas in. Do you ever just have to get out of your own dang way for things to go right in your life? Like, that's what I feel like is how I have to do. Maybe it's just being a highly emotional person, which I am, good way, you know, like all that poetic stuff and being so wordy and just wooed by life. Like, there is another side to that sword. It is double-edged, to be certain. One of my favorite C.S. Lewis quotes says, I'm paraphrasing this, but it says something along the lines of like, a man's weaknesses are an overflow of his strengths. And I try to remember that just in life in general, because it allows me to have more grace for like myself when I am highly emotional. Because I'm like, come on, like, I'm poetic and wooed, and these are like my favorite things about myself, but sometimes I have a hard time managing like the feelings of things. Like when you've worked really hard on a farm and you're leaving it. You know it's good, you know it's gonna be better, but it's still hard. And I also try to remember that when I am parenting my kids, because man, Some of my kids, like the things that are the hardest to deal with about them are 100% obvious overflows of their strengths. Like you might have a kid who you perceive to be bossy, but are they administrative? Do you see a gift of leadership on them? Or you might have a kid very, very black and white in the way they think, but are they justice-minded? Or a kid that has overwhelmingly huge feelings all the time that you might sometimes perceive as whiny. Are they passionate? Are they big feelers? Understanding that overflow thing has helped me a lot just in life, but I find myself repeating it a lot during seasons like this where I'm really having to emotionally deal with transition seasons and finding that the feelings are like overwhelming. What do we want to do here? Let's do squash, okra, some melons, and some more zinnias. I don't think I've put anything on this back trellis yet. Oh, look at my little Mexican sour gherkins. Those things are about to take hold of that trellis. So these are Minnesota midget melons. These seeds are about 4 years old, so I'm gonna sow them a little heavily. I do wanna show you guys something. Do you see this little piece of tape? One question I get asked all the time is, what do you do with seed packets that are opened? How do you keep them? First off, if no one's told you this yet, if you're new here and no one's told you this, don't throw away your seeds. That date on the back, not an expiration. It's not yogurt. It'll be fine next year. Like, these seeds are from 2018. They're fine. The germination can go down, especially if you've stored them in less than ideal situations. You typically want to keep them in just a cool, dry, dark place. Any warmth or moisture or a lot of direct light is just going to reduce your germination rates. Doesn't ruin them. Like if you accidentally forgot them out in your car or something like that, like don't throw them away then. My theory is don't throw away seeds. Try to plant them. Like, if you throw them away, there's a 100% chance that you will get nothing from them. If you try to plant them and they don't grow, okay, well at least you tried. I remember many moons ago when I was new to gardening, whenever I ordered my first order of Baker Creek seeds. This has been like 14 years ago or something like that. And I didn't know. And like there's this one pack of multicolored carrots that like still haunts me because I never planted it. And at the end of the season I was like, man, didn't get around to that, and I just threw them away. And I've wasted so many seeds, guys. Like I dropped seeds out of my pocket over there just a second ago. Just like a handful, like 5 or 6 seeds fell into the mud, and I was like, whatever, you know, it's how things end up growing in my walkways and stuff. I dropped seeds, I've left them out in the rain, I've screwed up, I've not saved them when I meant to. But for some reason that pack of carrots just like comes to me in my dreams. It's like, you wasted us. Don't throw away your seeds, is what I'm trying to stick with you. This is called washi tape. You can get it at craft stores like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever. Just anywhere where you buy scrapbooking type stuff. Washi, W-A-S-H-I. And it's cheap paper tape, and it's for scrapbooking and photos, so it's meant to be sealed and removed and sealed again. And it is awesome for sealing seed packs, because whenever you seal them, you want to get back in them. And that's exactly what washi tape is for. Plus it's colorful and cute, and that's always a bonus. Let's throw some of these massive sunflower seeds here in these corners too. I don't have any clue of when these are from, so I'm sewing them pretty heavy. I'll put 3 in. I'll just thin out any extras. There's a big sunflower there, but one more over here won't hurt. All right, so I'm thinking in this raised bed right here, I've got the cucamelons, the midget melons. I've got a couple of zinnias coming back here. And I'm thinking, that's a weed, I'll pull that out. I'm thinking I'm gonna do a few okras, some more zinnias here, a few okras, and a couple of squash. I am planting this heavy, but that's because I'm like making the most of it. I'm planting like the entire garden. I'm planting it thick. And mostly that's okay. I also anticipate my squash to die. Maybe it won't. Maybe this will be the 1 year in all the years of gardening here that my squash doesn't die early from squash bugs, but I just plant a lot of squash and we eat a lot of it before the squash bugs kill it all. Oh, look, a little froggy guy. Hey. Hey, Toady. When my boys were little, they caught a toad in the garden and they called him Toady. I mean, it's been years ago. And now every toad that they've ever caught since then, they're like, Toady, he's back. I remember like a year after that happened, this is when my boys were like 2, 3, and they found 2 toads at once. And they were like, Toady? What's happening? That's when I realized that they actually thought they were catching the same toad over and over. And they're like, Mom, Toady's got a twin brother. And they very originally named him Toady 2. So Toady and Toady 2. The only toads that live on Roots and Refuge Farm. Guys, I'm not even making notes of this. I'm just putting it in here like a maniac. And I don't even care. This is reckless gardening. I'm so excited to see this garden just growing like a hot mess. I've always hated in years past, like whenever I would sow things and they wouldn't quite come up, or I'd have to re-sow, or I'd succession sow, and then it would come down to like the midst of the season and I would have like big open spaces and I'd be like, man, I wish I had put something in there. And so I was just determined this year to not do that. I was determined that this garden will truly be completely full. Even if I don't have time to harvest it, this garden is gonna grow. Jill's gonna be pulling volunteer plants till like the end of time. Here's empty seed packs from the other day where I planted melons and a bunch of cosmos and stuff. I have no idea if my banana plants are gonna come back here. Some zinnias in there. I hope the bananas come back. Oh wow, look at these beauties. So I'm curious. I've now planted all the seeds that I brought here to plant pretty quickly. I mean, kind of heavy. I planted kind of heavy. I'll either have to thin or let them grow really thick, and that might be what ends up happening. But I'm curious, if this was your farm, if you were me, you loved it. Because I really do. I really love this farm. I really love these gardens. I have all these memories here and all this stuff, and that doesn't take away from how right it is for us to move forward. Our new property, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine leaving this. I tried, like, I mean, we had already like got the new property. We'd found it. We'd bought it. Secured that land, and I knew we were moving, and I had all these photos because Maya had gone and seen it. Until I stepped foot on it, I could not wrap my head around leaving this. And as soon as I stepped foot on it, I knew that it was right. I'm so excited to relocate. I'm so excited to bring the drawings to life of the new gardens we're gonna build. All of that. That is 100% true. Every time I talk about this, somebody goes, well, then don't move. That's not what I mean. Like, that seems like the solution, but it's not the solution. Because moving is right and it's good, and I'm glad for it. But that doesn't lessen the fact that I'm leaving something behind that I care for. But what would you do? Like, what would you do in your last garden year? And truly keep into consideration, like, we're moving in 2.5 months. I have to pack our entire house, transition my kids to a new place. There are a lot of other things. I can't just sit in the garden for the next 10 weeks, even though in moments I wish I could. But like, would you disconnect early? Would you like pull your heart away early? Or would you sow seeds and love it down to the very minute that you leave? Because I've always wished I could be the former kind of person that just like, that really just lets go. And like, right now I'm flip-flopping between this. I don't even care. I'm not even gonna do this. I can't even wrap my head around getting in the garden, to like getting down here and realizing that like I must. It's only hard because that whole overflow of strength's nonsense. So what would you do? Would you just like dive in the deep end and plant every square inch and love it for every minute that you could? I hope you would. I hope that that's how that you guys are living your life. I think it's better. I can see the clouds in the distance, and I can tell that the rain is coming. So I'm gonna gather up the remaining seeds, throw these remaining sunflowers in somewhere, and go inside. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. God bless you. Until next time.